Can you still see the video?
Yep.
Okay, I'll get us started. Welcome. This is our third office hours for the Lower Town Area Mobility Study. Today, our talk is going to focus on bicycle and pedestrian conditions. We are using this format to meet every other Friday to engage with you, let you ask questions or give us some feedback. This discussions will focus on what you see, if you see any issues, if there's any positives out there. Let me introduce you to the team we have here today. We have Lauren Hood. She will facilitate today's talk. We have Joyce Yassen. She's a transportation engineer from WSP who will lead the pedestrian and bike discussion. I'm Steve Loveland. I'm the project manager for the overall project. I'm with OHM Advisors. Heather Seyfarth with Ann Arbor City Planner, and Luke Liu is the city's project manager. Now I will hand it over to Lauren and she will take over from here.
Thank you, Stephen. We're going to try and be brief with the presentation because we really want to encourage a dialogue around bikes and peds. But we want to let everybody know that this meeting is being recorded and we will post it to the website for people that couldn't attend. So if you have neighbors you think would be interested in this information, please drive them to the website to check out this video. So it's a way to discuss the project without meeting face to face. We have a few different topics all related to the mobility study each time that we meet. And it's really, again, an informal discussion about the mobility study. So either raise your hand, either physically, we can see your faces, or with the virtual feature. Or you could send us a message in the chat. Next slide. So like Steve said, we're on our third session. We have one more coming up 2 weeks from now, November 6th. We'll be talking about safety conditions. So please mark your calendars and again, tell your neighbors who may not be here for this session. We want to talk about safety. Next slide. So why do we do a mobility study? So we need a holistic view of transportation conditions in the Lower Town area. And we really want to consider all travelers. So we heard some feedback that automobile drivers usually get priority. We really want to take into consideration everybody in the transportation mix, not just prioritize car drivers. And the overall goal is to make traveling easier around Lower Town. So what we're studying, this is a study area map of what we're considering the Lower Town area. The factors that we're investigating are traffic congestion, bike travel and connections, pedestrian movements, public transit, roadway safety, and intersection designs. Next slide. So where we are in the study process, we are past our conditions analysis and we're into the resident feedback portion of the process. Next, we're going to get to project vision and goals. The team will produce some solutions and then we will have some final recommendations that'll be presented to the team at the City Planning Department. Oh, let me stop before you move to the next one. Sorry, Steve. I do need to point out where the opportunities for public engagement are. So we have opportunities again in the project vision and goals and after the solutions development section of the process.
We will have our next public meeting is scheduled for November 19th and information will be coming out on that.
Thank you. So outcomes of the study, we want to identify ways to improve mobility, again, for all users, not just drivers. So for drivers, cyclists, pedestrians, transit riders, and others. We want to explore opportunities to change your travel habits. So if you're predominantly an automobile user, what's it going to take to get you to walk or use a bike? Changing travel habits and patterns can help limit congestion issues. So again, a lot of the issues are around congestion in automobiles. So how do we get people using other modes? And innovative solutions that improve efficiency of the system. And now I will switch to Joyce, who will talk to us about pedestrian and bicycle conditions in Lower Town. And can you tell people what WSP is also? I don't remember.
Thanks, Lauren. WSP is an international engineering consulting firm, and we looked at the pedestrian and bicyclist facilities in Lower Town, and we used the audit forms developed by the San Francisco Department of Public Health to collect data for pedestrian and bicyclist facilities in the Lower Town area. And these audits are referred to as the acronyms PECI and BECI, short for Pedestrian and Bicycle Environmental Quality Indices. So why did we use the PECI and BECI? It's because the scorings and weighting factors are based on a survey of national experts, and when compared to other methods, it was the most comprehensive and customizable. The audits consist of observational field surveys to review street and intersection environmental factors known to affect pedestrian and bicyclist travel behaviors. So it was a team of two teams of two people. We went out there and we looked at the sidewalks and the bicycle facilities, and we surveyed them using these audit forms. Next slide, please. There are 5 categories that we looked at included in the audit. These categories are intersection safety, traffic, street design, land use, and perceived safety. And each category has a variety of indicators that we checked for. This slide just shows a sample of the items that we checked for in each category. For example, in the PECI intersection safety category, some of the items we looked at was the presence of crosswalks, the type of crosswalks that was present, pedestrian signals, whether they were countdown signals or not, number of curb ramps, intersection lighting. So each one of these categories had different indicators that we checked for when we were out in the field reviewing. Next slide. So the audit results were then converted into numeric values to determine a final score for each intersection and road segment. And the numeric values and their relative weightings were based on the default criteria identified by the developer. Scores were calculated for each intersection and street segment as defined by the PECI and BECI weighting indicators. And these scores were then mapped using the QGIS to visually display the scores based on the thresholds. And then the slide here just shows the thresholds that were used. And an example of each of the thresholds that are present in Lower Town is provided on the slide. So as you can see in the top right photo, Pontiac Trail and Duvarin Road was rated unsuitable for pedestrians. And this is because there are missing curb ramps and marked crosswalks are missing, among other things. And then just under that photo is a photo of Pontiac Trail and Amherst Avenue, which was rated as poor. This location is slightly better than the previous one, but because it provides a high visibility crosswalk, but is still rated poorly because it provides it's missing some curb ramps and some crossings and some approaches. And then within the study area, there was 8 signalized intersections shown in the remaining 2 photos at Barton Drive and Plymouth Road and Broadway Street. And all 8 signalized intersections were either rated as basic facilities provided or reasonable facilities provided. So these were just examples on the different thresholds within the study area. And moving on to the results now that I referred to earlier in the presentation are the maps. And as you can probably tell, many of the stop controlled intersections were rated as poor or unsuitable conditions for pedestrians. And this is because there was a combination of missing crosswalks, no lighting, and missing curb ramps at these locations. The road segments that were rated poorly are either missing a pedestrian facility or the facility is discontinuous. So the sidewalk doesn't continue through the entire segment, or there is no sidewalk present on that side of the roadway. So these were just the results of the audit forms. And then we also have on the next slide the results for the bicyclists. And so basic and reasonable conditions exist at all locations except for the east side of Longshore Drive between Amherst Avenue and Barton Drive when we were looking at the bicyclist facilities. And this is mainly due to the unpaved road and the horizontal curve present along this segment. So I can turn it back to Lauren now.
Thanks, Joyce. So we just want to reflect on what we saw there. We want to know, what is your experience moving through the Lower Town area? Did what the folks doing the study found, does that jive with what your actual experience is on the ground? So I think KJMC, was it Kevin? I remember you had a family full of bicyclists in your house. Do you find that what was discovered by this firm matches your bicycle experience on the road?
It's Ken, yeah.
Ken.
First, you need to look at the chat.
Oh, I see.
Sorry.
Oh, you're colorblind, so you couldn't really distinguish what was what.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hey, Joyce, can you go back and pull up the slide that had the thresholds? Oh, I'm sorry. Steven's got the slides. Okay. So you can't tell any of those
So I would
colors.
say the 0 to 20 and the 81 to 80 are just barely distinguishable, just barely. And I can tell them, I mean, if you look at the ones on the right, I can't tell what color that is surrounding Pontiac Trail and DeVarin.
Okay.
I can't tell which one of those it is.
Well, let me just interpret. So the Pontiac Trail is like the worst of the conditions.
Right,
It's
yeah, I got that from the
unusable.
discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the two middle categories, the 21 to 40 and 61 to 80, yeah, I can't tell there's a part at all.
Okay. Okay. So Plymouth Road falls
You're red,
into
green,
that.
colorblind. I'm sorry.
Well, we didn't take that into consideration. You know, we're always thinking about equity, how we simplify the information, but we did not say, what if someone's colorblind?
Yeah, that happens. Yeah.
I'll go to the other slides in,
Talk through it.
we'll give you a brief, what we're seeing here. So
Is DeVarin and Skydale the same?
What was your question, Ken?
Is DeVarin at the very top and Skydale about the fifth one down? Are those the same color? What are
is
those?
this Skydale?
Yeah, that's Skydale.
Yeah, those are both shown as red,
Okay,
which is the unsuitable for pets.
yeah. There's a dot farther south. I guess that's the entrance to Arrowwood. That's also unsuitable.
This is 0 to 20 range, 0 to 20 range.
There's a crossing in between those, between that and Manor. Right there. Yeah, that one's
Right
not
here.
marked at all.
Hmm.
You guys should evaluate that one.
I'm not sure, Joyce. Do you remember an intersection in that area or no?
The problem is it's not a motorist intersection. Cars
Oh,
are not
okay.
doing anything there. There's a marked crosswalk. It goes from one side of the street to the other to the bus stop that's there.
Okay, so just going down Pontiac Trail, you have a red here, a
Yep.
red at these three.
Yep.
Then it gets into the 21 to 40 range the rest of the way down.
Agreed. Yeah, we walk down to Farmers Market quite a bit, which is, we're off Skydale, basically. We're on Larkspur. We walk downtown, and my wife and daughter run a lot in this area. And yeah, that whole area, especially with the two schools, there's Rudolph Steiner farther north, and north side is the important one. They call it STEAM now, I guess. Yeah, that whole area is kind of marginal. Yeah, pedestrian wise. And the sidewalks are not bad, but the crossings are not great.
And then if we go to the bike, the intersections are all showing as basic bicyclist conditions. They're all yellow in both of these.
So I would disagree with the signalized intersection at, which I'm not sure, does that have a color then? Is it yellow too? The square there at Barton and Pontiac?
Yes, they're all shown as yellow.
Okay, that particular intersection at Barton and Pontiac reliably turns red for cyclists. regardless of the other traffic, if a cyclist is approaching that intersection, it turns red. I reported that to the city and they really kind of ignored that. You should try it on a bike. Do about 12, 15 miles an hour. If you've got a green signal as you approach that, it'll turn red for you.
Which intersection is it again?
Pontiac and Barton.
Okay.
Yeah, that one, it's a new triggered by video system and it's just got a problem with cyclists. My wife says the same thing. She goes through there every day still and it just constantly turns red on her. My son has had the same thing. The other ones, from my experience, those are probably right. You are missing a connection on Chandler. Yep, Chandler going south. There's actually a connection right. You just went right over it. Yep, there's actually a paved shared use path right there.
Yep. Okay.
And otherwise, I should drop out because, yeah, well, except I can't tell the colors of those roads, but I consider the area relatively bikeable.
Mm-hmm.
The segments are showing they're in the 61 to 80 range along Pontiac Trail, which are reasonable bicyclist conditions.
The only caveat I have there is as you get toward the tracks on the south end of Pontiac Trail, we have real problems with the residents putting their garbage receptacles out into the bike lane and blocking the bike lanes. And that has also been reported and the city doesn't do anything about it, even though that is arguably an ordinance violation.
That was also brought up in our road safety audit that we did.
Oh, you saw that then, good.
Yeah, we had pictures of that.
I guess I would note the tracks that you cross down at the south end of there on Pontiac are diagonal, which is a real hazard for cyclists. And I'm not sure people realize, a lot of motorists have no clue what I'm doing when I'm crossing those tracks because I prepare for them beforehand to make sure I can cross perpendicular. And I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that, but maybe there's signage. I don't know. I have no idea if there's a sign that says pedestrians should cross perpendicular and people should yield to them when they're doing it or something.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, otherwise, as far as I can tell from the colors, again, I consider this area to be relatively bikeable. So. I'm monopolizing this conversation. I should let other people.
Oh, you're fine.
You're one of 3 people, and one of the others is a transit worker. So as far as citizens go, you're half the conversation. So totally fine. Well, I want to Yvette, who's here from the ride. Did you want to jump in, or are you just here to observe and hear feedback?
Yeah, I'm just here listening.
All right. Thanks, Yvette. And then the woman on the phone, was it Beth, Betty?
Barb.
Barb. I knew it was a B name. So Barb, you were driving. I don't know that you could see any of the slides that were shared, but you could kind of hear some of the feedback on the road rankings. Okay. Barb was otherwise occupied, so I won't press too hard because she was driving. Well, Ken, Heather, you had mentioned something talking about how the different modes connect to each other. So Ken, can you chime in as a cyclist? How do you feel cycling connects to your other transit modes, to pedestrian?
Yeah, that's one thing that I was wondering if you use your bike in this way, if you use your bike to do like the first mile, last mile kind of thing, and then maybe jump on transit, or if you're doing a combination of walking and biking, and how seamless is that transition for you or not seamless at all?
I have put my bike on the buses. The bus system is fabulous. I mean, they're just terrific. They have, as far as I know, every bus has the bike racks on the front of it.
Mm-hmm.
I have used those before on rare occasions. I usually just bike the whole trip, but my trips are usually about 2.5 miles, either going downtown or going to work out on Plymouth Road. As far as switching from walking to biking, when there's bike parking is a serious problem throughout the city.
Mm.
When bike parking is when it's there and when I've got a good chance to use it, there's no problem switching back to walking around as long as you got the right shoes for it. We do walk a lot to downtown for shopping. Every weekend we walk down Pontiac Trail to get to shopping. And as I said, my wife and daughter do a lot of running in the area. There are sidewalk gaps. The places you have noted as problems for crossing and intersections, yep, agreed. It seems like there were a lot more. The city's done a good job recently of marking crosswalks, but the city's also over decades been removing unmarked crosswalks all over the place. They just there's a place where the sidewalk meets the road. I mean, you can see there's lots of small T intersections and things, and the city's taken out a place where the sidewalk came to the road. I gather that's because under state law or something, there's an unmarked crosswalk if the sidewalk meets the road, and if they take out that one piece of sidewalk, then it becomes not a crosswalk at all, and you're not supposed to cross there, and you're supposed to walk to the next crosswalk or something. I've always thought that was pretty rude that they've been taking all of those out. In some places,
maybe
are fine, and other places the distances seem awfully long before you can cross the street at a crosswalk. The one other note I'd make is an all cyclist facility. There's a marked bike route that currently exists. It's been there since I moved to the area. It's on Skydale, and then it goes on Skydale to Hilldale, crosses an old easement that's there. There's a paved crossing that really should be repaved at this point. It's falling apart a bit, but keeps going south on Hilldale, then goes to Breed. It's a little unclear what's supposed to happen after that, but if you go down Chandler and there's not too much commuter traffic at the time, Chandler's a great street to bike down, very calm, except for the cut through traffic, right? And then there's that crossing next to the cemetery, and then you're on, I think you end up on Wright Street. But that whole trip, we've done that when we had the kids in the bike trailer. We used to do that one sometimes, and that's a very pleasant trip. With the two problems being the commuter traffic cut through on Chandler, and then how to get from Breed to Chandler.
Okay.
Always a bit of an issue. And then crossings to North Side to Steam. There are issues with those, and that's mostly all that commuter traffic you guys mentioned earlier in the last discussion 2 weeks ago. They just don't want to yield, and it's gotten better. They yield better than they used to. The speeds are still an issue, though. Something you might want to consider, though, is Pontiac Trail itself. Pontiac Trail currently has like absolute minimum bike lanes. I think I've measured those, and they're legal. They're fine, except if you wanted to do something to help cyclists on Pontiac Trail, you might want to consider the treatment that we just did on Plymouth. There's the lanes, the car lanes there are a little not wide, but they're certainly not narrow. And if you did that small buffer like they recently did on Plymouth, that might help some too. My ideal cyclist setup for the area, right around Pontiac Trail itself, would be buffered bike lanes on Pontiac, and then really hit Chandler to get the commuter traffic, the cut-through traffic off, and make that an all cyclist facility right there, because it's really a very pleasant street. And I know a lot of people on Chandler who have always been upset about that cut-through traffic. They'd love some more traffic calming there.
Okay.
And then you got a really nice facility going down to the bridges, and the bridges then have the wide sidewalks and not bad conditions. So.
Yeah, thank you.
We're gonna have to start paying you a consultant fee in a minute. I have one more question too. As we wanted to get people to think about switching modes. So it's one thing to provide some infrastructure and say, okay, now you bike and walk. But we also want to think about like how do we change people's minds about that? So you have told us before you have a whole cycling household. How did you get to a place where you cycle and walk so that we can use it on other people?
My wife and I were university students at the University of Michigan and got in the habit and just decided we didn't want to get out of the habit and bought a house that was close enough to downtown to have job opportunities. And it's just worked out for us and we stuck with it. Winter is an important thing. I haven't mentioned that yet. I should. The city's practice of plowing snow into bike lanes really shuts down cycling in Ann Arbor in the winter, makes it very hard. The city's plowing practices also tend to clog up the ramps for the crosswalks. They just plow the snow into the ramps. That it doesn't stop people from walking, but it really makes it harder. There were recent changes to the snow clearing practices, the ordinance for sidewalks, and I think that's made things better. I think that helps some. And a lot of our neighbors walk their kids to STEAM still. So, although winter is when it gets tough because they really plow in all the crosswalks. It's.
So are you guys year-round cyclists? Even in winter,
Yeah.
you're still on your bike?
All year round. Yeah, I put on studded tires and I have fenders on the bike. And I go out Plymouth, actually. I'm loving the new treatment on Plymouth, the repaving and the buffered lanes. Brilliant. Oh,
It's good to hear.
It could be better. I mean, there are lots of people who would completely disagree with me and say that's not nearly good enough, but I love it. I think it's great. But I've biked there since before there were bike lanes on Plymouth. That was bad.
Yeah.
All right, let me give Barb one more shout out and see if she wants to jump in. Barb, you with us? All right.
Hate to be the only one here. Jeez.
I know. Well, I mean, it's great. Any other feedback you've always wanted to give city officials if only you had the chance? So you've given us a couple of things. You're like, I told the city this and they didn't do anything. What else do you have? Just give us your list.
Oh my goodness. The traffic signals, it's not just the one at Pontiac and Barton, although that one I just think that's defective. I read something about that. There's supposedly a size of number of pixels it picks up. And if it gets the wrong number of pixels, it goes in some kind of error mode or something. And I think that's what's going on with cyclists there. It looks at us and says, wow, I don't know what the heck you are, but I'm giving you a red light. And other places in town, and there's not much you guys, and it's kind of outside this area. Anytime the signals are synchronized, they're synchronized at a speed that doesn't work for biking. The speeds are set for, whatever the speed limit is or whatever the speed of traffic is to move traffic. And it just means you on a bike get a lot of red lights. I mean, I got to the point now that if I'm going into work on Plymouth, I watch for the mass of traffic coming the other way, because that tells me what the timing is at the light at Murphin, and I try and synchronize my speed to match that so that I can end up with a green light at Murphin, because that system completely has no idea I'm there, doesn't care. And if I don't figure out a way to work around it, then I end up with a red light there every time. There's a lot of that. If you use the traffic signals a lot as a cyclist, you just learn a completely different method of biking to try and get more green lights, because you just get them red light all the time. They're timed for other speeds, so if you're doing 15 and it's time for 25 or 30 or something, you're just going to get red lights. On Division, I get like 3 red lights by bike going the whole length down Division. No, it's not Division. 5th, headed, because I go down to the library. And by car, I can get through that with all green. It's nice by car, but by bike, that's a royal pain. Bike parking, we really should have a lot more covered bike parking. We have the winters around here dump a lot of snow, and the business owners, if they have a hoop at all, tend to put the snow right on top of the hoop because they have to clear the sidewalk for pedestrians, and they don't think about anybody biking in the winter, so they just toss the snow on top of the hoop. What else?
You got a gallery feeding you comments too?
Right?
I said, do you have a gallery feeding you comments?
No, this is, well, I mean, we biked and walked around here for 25 years, 30 years now, something. So I've just got my laundry list of things I'd like to, I wish we could do something like this.
What are your favorite places to ride your bike around the city then?
Huron River Drive, and then, just my route to work and to shopping on the weekend. Huron Parkway surprisingly isn't bad, and I don't bike on the side path. I bike on the road there. The speeds aren't great. I'd love to do something about the speeds, but the volume there isn't that bad. There's not that many people on it most of the time, and the sight lines are good enough that it's not a huge problem, and you can, go pretty quick down to the river and stuff that way.
Do you choose the roadway over the side path because the side path has too many pedestrians in it, or do you just like being on the roadway?
For about 8 reasons. The side paths are not maintained well usually, so the surface is much worse. Oh, there you got me started on. We need to repave roads more often. and sweeping. We have a lot of problem right now with the bike lanes on Pontiac being full of walnuts, black walnuts, and leaves, and other debris. And part of that is it's hard to street sweep when you've got the pedestrian crossing signs, the breakaway signs that they put at the crosswalks, which are fantastic. Absolutely love those. But it makes it harder to street sweep, and we don't really, try that often to sweep the bike lanes out. Yeah, the side paths, there's a lot of other traffic, and I'm going too fast. If I'm doing 20 miles an hour, that's a ridiculous speed for a side path. Absolutely not appropriate, right? So if I'm coming up to make a turn somewhere, the side paths make it miserable to make turns. I learned a long time ago how to make turns from the road and just watch my rear view mirror and get over at a safe distance and everything. And so that works great for me. I usually, if I'm going downtown, have a bike trailer, and bike trailers on side paths. If you're going slow, the path is wide enough, it's fine. Like Huron Parkway, there's a lot of people who bike on that side path with trailers with kids. And yeah, it's fine if you're going slow. And it's not, I mean, obviously winter doesn't work out because that path is cleared fairly late after a snowfall, but it does get cleared. The Parks Department does a decent job of clearing facilities they consider theirs. So yeah, for various reasons, I prefer to bike in the road myself. I prefer roads now with bike lanes because, the motorists kind of, if they see a bike lane, they at least expect to see cyclists some. But another problem, now that I mentioned that, is motorists drive in bike lanes all the time around here. Every time there's a curve, they go on the inside of the curve to go faster and drive right through the bike lane to do it. Anytime they think they're going around somebody making a left turn, they just pull into the bike lane to do it without even checking. Amazon, everybody else just stops in the bike lanes to do deliveries and things. There's just like complete disrespect to the bike lanes around here, and I've never heard of anybody writing a ticket to anybody doing anything in a bike lane. But our ordinance is supposedly one of the worst ones in Michigan. The usual one is you just can't drive in a bike lane, and ours says something about, well, except for these 15 exceptions or something, then you can. Although, passing somebody who's turning left isn't one of those exceptions, but it happens all the time. Yeah.
That's a good observation. The changes don't just stop and end in the infrastructure. We got to be thinking legislation too.
Yeah. There are places where the bike lane ends at intersections. You guys know the discussions about that, right? Pontiac is a great example because the bike lane ends just before the intersection, both north and southbound at Barton. I'm sorry, at Barton. I'm fine with it. Other people can't stand that.
Mhm.
I can't give you guys advice on, what to do about that, but that's a consideration for a lot of people, that if the bike lane doesn't continue through the intersection, they don't understand how to use it. And I do. I just take the lane there and it works. So. But yeah, it can't be anything else, can we?
Well, if a thought comes to you later, you can always email us. But this is a pretty good list going.
Will you do us a favor for next time? Will you tell a couple of your neighbors?
I did. I'm frustrated. So my daughter really wanted to be in this conversation, but I think she's downtown somewhere and couldn't make it. My wife is at work. She's working at the university, at the hospital. She's actually going into the lab, and she couldn't make it. I told the WB, Washington Biking Walking Coalition email list, here's the meeting. You guys if you're in this area, you really ought to show up. And I guess nobody made it either.
Okay.
Yeah, I did try.
We appreciate your efforts, and thanks for showing up.
Sure.
Well, I guess we have like 20 more minutes, but no need to hang around if we've got it all out. Yvette, did you want to throw in before we go? What's the ride's take on this mobility study, or any of the feedback you've heard from our resident consultant?
Yeah, I think from our standpoint, we're just hoping that what comes from the study doesn't impact bus transportation in any way. So it doesn't sound like, from what you guys have discussed today, that it will. In fact, if KJMC gets all his green lights, we're good.
Awesome. Okay.
Actually, hold on just a minute. My daughter just got back from downtown or something. Yeah, we might be able to get another person in this.
Oh, we get a youth voice.
Right. I'm gonna see if she can make it over here in a bit. Oh, here's my another wish. You guys can't do anything about it, but if somebody put it on a list somewhere to think about for the future, a crossing from State Street to Lower Town for bike and pedestrian. Right?
Wait, could you say that again?
Crossing from State Street over the tracks to that park that's right between the tracks and the river. You have to look at it on a map. If you went straight north on State Street, you could actually do a bike pedestrian crossing there with one of those cable. There's a name for those. There's the bridge that has one pillar with cables coming off of it. It could be brilliant.
The suspend, yeah.
Coming down to, like, there's a dog park down there, and you could do a crossing there that would just save people so much hassle getting to the State Street area. Yeah, so zoom in there. Okay, and yep. So do you see State? It's to the left a bit. Zoom in just a little bit more. Wish I could take hold and show you where that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
See where it says the 94 symbol right in the middle? It says business 94. It's to the left of where you are right now.
Here's State.
No, that's not State. That's Observatory.
That says State.
Oh, maybe your hand isn't synchronized with the map on this or something. Because it looks to me like you're way over on the east side of campus.
Yeah, are you able to zoom in a little bit more?
All right, so here's State. My hand is right on state. Do you see that?
Well, yeah, but it's nowhere near state on my view. Now
Okay.
Yeah.
there you go. Now it is. You have to zoom in a lot here.
You're probably using a lot of bandwidth. Maybe pause your video so that Google Earth can use your bandwidth.
Can you hear me? This is Barbara Lucas talking.
Hey, Barbara.
Hey, Barbara.
Yeah, can I say something now that you can hear?
Sure.
There used to be historically State Street connected to the river, and I would be all for any connection there. It would be huge for the entire city because it would, instead of dividing Lower Town and Upper Town, it would be one city, and it would, as Ken said, make all those horrible problems over by the, division and everything, Beeks and everything, would be so much. Avoiding that would be heavenly. Did you hear me?
Yep.
We did.
Noted. Thank
Okay.
Sorry, I'm freezing up here.
I think I
can
get, oh, go ahead, Barbara.
I was just going to say, now that you can hear me, can I say a few more things?
Please do. I was going to ask that.
Okay, I totally agree with Ken. This business of debris in the bike lanes is so dangerous. I also agree that the problems with the snow in the on the corners, the curbs, that's just terrible. I try to ride my bike in the winter too, but I also walk a whole lot in the winter. And I'm getting older. I really think that even though there's an ordinance that says that citizens who live on corners have to clear their sidewalks, ramps, they don't in my neighborhood. And I would like a way to anonymously report my neighbors because I'm afraid of anyone knowing that I've reported them. Is that possible?
Well, there is a ClickFix. I have to go back to see how anonymous that can be, but that is possibly a way to do that. Otherwise, we'll need to investigate that a little bit.
It is, I've done it. You can do
What?
it anonymously, yeah.
You can do it anonymously. ClickFix is a way to report things to the city. And Ken is confirming that you can do that anonymously.
All right, I'll try it. I've been nervous that I'd do it wrong or something because these particular neighbors would hate me for the rest of my life. And I also wonder whether there would be a possibility of if you absolutely can't pay people to do by hand getting the debris out, then, starting a volunteer thing like they have at Water Hill for the Snow Buddy, it seems like this debris stuff is really, really dangerous. I mean, I'm scared of being falling off into the path of a car, especially on, say, Pontiac Trail, where the cars are going very fast and very close to the bike path. So I think that, all this concern about cars and potholes for cars, we should be putting bicyclists first and fixing the potholes in the bike lanes first, making those smooth, making sure the debris is out, because those are our most vulnerable citizens. And the reason I think that most of the people in my neighborhood don't ride bikes is because they're scared. And I live so close to downtown that I don't understand why more people aren't riding bikes. And it's got to be because they just feel it's too dangerous. So it's a vicious circle because the fewer bikes on the road, the less careful the cars are because they aren't looking for bikes. And so we need to break that cycle of people being too scared to ride in the roads.
Thanks, Barb.
Yeah, and there's another section that I don't know, since I can't see your maps. Have you addressed the little bit of lack of sidewalk between, it's on Broadway, right by the new drug, marijuana dispensary? Do you know that there's just a little footpath there that's really dangerous? Do you know what I'm talking about?
You zooming in right here.
I think that's, well, Barb, we've got a Google map open. You can't see it, but.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty straightforward. At the corner of Maiden Lane and Broadway and Pontiac Trail, you can't get from, you can't get to the sidewalk that is on the Broadway street. I meant to say Plymouth, Maiden Lane, Pontiac Trail. You can't get to Broadway Street on a sidewalk unless you go like in front of the marijuana dispensary instead of along Plymouth. So it's very dangerous there.
They got it. There's the cow path.
Got it.
Yeah, it's like a cow path.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I'm seeing it.
And I know you know that it takes like 20 minutes to get through the light there as a pedestrian. I mean, not literally 20 minutes, but it's very discouraging for people that, want to be efficient with their time. And same thing at Fuller and Maiden Lane. So I hope something can happen someday to make it more bicycle friendly. And I also agree with Ken said needs to be covered bicycle parking. I think he said that. It was hard to hear him.
Yeah.
But covered, I think, is important because more older people are going to be buying electric bikes, and having covered parking is important for any bike in terms of keeping it from, getting rusted out and everything, but especially electric bikes. So the more covered parking, the better. The University of Michigan doesn't even have bicycle parking at I know you don't want to talk about that, but most of their entrances don't even have bicycle parking, much less covered. So that's a big problem. Because my husband and I, hardly are in cars at all. And I've had to go to the ER several times to meet family members there, and there's nowhere to park.
Thanks, Barb.
And yeah, I think that's all the stuff I was thinking. I kept trying to unmute myself, but I couldn't. So thank you for letting me spiel.
Of course, that's why we're here. And then we have someone new that joined, Amelia. Hi.
Sorry, yeah, I missed the first section, but I just kind of wanted to hear what people's thoughts were. So chime in for the last.
Did you want to add anything, or you just want to take it in?
A little bit of both, but I'm guessing from the bit that I did hear, on those areas, it sounds like people have pointed out some of the most glaring difficulties with using those areas as a pedestrian and as a cyclist. So at least from my experience, I'm also a bit of a more confident pedestrian and cyclist, so I don't, I'm going to use it no matter what, but I'm sure someone's already mentioned the Broadway bridges being very difficult.
Great. And I think a question we posed a little earlier, you might have missed, how do you find the connection between, if you're multimodal? So if you're biking, walking, and driving as part of a trip, how do you find the connections between those modes?
I tend to do a lot of public transit as opposed to driving. So I tend to be walking, biking, and taking a bus. As far as connections go, Yeah, I mean, I think it's, more covered bike parking is a big thing, as far as being a cyclist, which, yeah, ditto everything that was previously said about that. As far as accessing buses, I think those stops are the way the stops are set up work pretty well for me. But I can't necessarily speak to other people's experiences with them.
Okay. Were you done? You went mute again.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to give other people feedback, but yeah, that was
Okay.
Ken,
most of my thoughts on that.
Ken, did your daughter want to chime in at all? I saw her kind of peeking in and out of the screen.
That is my daughter.
Oh, Amelia's your daughter?
Amelia's my daughter.
Oh, Amelia. Oh, okay. Oh, great.
Doubling up on the bandwidth right now. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You want to see where that bridge, where that crossing would be? Just scroll this map up just a little bit.
Oh, for the State Street crossing. Yeah.
You see that?
Bottom
Yeah,
left
yeah,
there's where it comes
I
in.
think I can picture what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's actually quite a bit above the tracks right there. So you might actually be able to put a bridge high enough above the tracks. It's surprising. There's a big retaining wall there that puts State up, that part of Fuller, well up above that parking lot that's right down where State comes out. It might be possible, without too much problem, except obviously cost.
Yeah.
To get it high enough to cross the tracks legally, because I guess they've got really, you have to have a lot of clearance over tracks now. And then drop it down to that park that's there, Broadway Park, right? Or the river gets a little narrower right there, just above that. There's some kind of a spillway or something. Oh no, to the west. Yeah, right around the Broadway bridges somewhere there, and cross and give you a completely separate bike pedestrian crossing of both of those, going to State Street. And it's the going to State Street would be the nice part, because right now to get to State Street, my barber's on State Street down on campus. To get there, I take Maiden Lane and Fuller and Washtenaw a little bit, and then go through the north part of Central Campus to get over there, because there's just no good way to get, right? I mean, it's just big going around things to get to State Street. And you can go the other way, which is just as much of a pain to get over to State Street right now by bike. And walking, there's no way to do it walking either. On rare occasion, we go to State Street walking, and we just illegally cross the tracks like everybody else does. It would be nice to have a real.
Yeah, I'll add, if you actually go by where those dog parks are. Sorry, Dad. There's you can see the pedestrian cut through. Like it's really obvious where people are going through to get their dogs down there. So especially if they are considering doing ever want to consider doing high-speed rail in that area again, or a commuter rail or something, yeah, that might be a bit of an issue.
Yeah, I know that's a huge issue and worry of the rail, people walking across the tracks. Yeah, no, that's a really interesting idea, especially with the DTE development going in there. I'm sure there's a lot of complications that we would have to overcome, but I like that thinking of that connection down there.
Walked down to State Street I can't remember why we walked down there just like 2 months ago. And I just happened to look back and said, hey, wow, you know what we could do right here? Man, a bridge over this would be amazing. And then, because looking back from the sidewalk, you're really high up above everything there. I was surprised at how much it rises right there, because it drops down to Gandy Dancer again, but right there where State comes out, it's got to be at least 10 feet up in the air right there already.
All right, well, we're down to our last minute. Any final thoughts?
Appreciate you guys reaching out like this. I am really sorry I couldn't find more people to come in.
We appreciate you showing up, and thanks for the effort.
Yeah, and all of the thoughts that you shared, you've clearly put a lot of thinking into this, and you have a lot of experience. So we appreciate you showing up and being able to share that experience with us.
Thank you, and we'll be back again 2 weeks from today at the same time. So you've got another shot. See if you can tell some more people. Amelia, you too.
Okay.
And Barb, tell your friends.
We'll probably just drag my brother onto the call. You'll get our whole family on.
Right. There'll be a family consultant team.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you. All right, see everybody in a couple of weeks.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.